Joining me right now is former Republican presidential candidate, Fox News contributor, Herman Cain. Herman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. Happy to be with you.
So you live in Georgia. Is this the next test for GOP success under Trump? What's your take on what's happening in Georgia?
Well, my take is, first, the Democrats are trying to steal this seat. Clearly, they have $8 million, most of it from money outside of Georgia, going up against a typical congressional race of $2 million. So clearly they are trying to buy this seat. But the downfall is that they have selected a 30-year-old, inexperienced young Democrat to basically be the flag bearer for the Democrats. Now, does he have an early lead in the polls against a crowded field? Yes. But when you spend $8 million versus some of the candidates barely have $1 million to spend, of course the perception is going to be created through the lens of the media. But I don't think it's going to last once the race becomes him versus one of the Republicans in a runoff.
You know, it's funny to see Hollywood getting so involved. I mean, when you see all this push coming from other states, I mean, this is a Georgia state race, and yet you've got Hollywood getting involved. You've got other states trying to get Georgians to change their vote. It sort of feels unfair to have other people involved in something that's a Georgia state business. I know I'm stating the obvious.
Memo to Hollywood. It didn't work when they tried to influence the presidential race. It's not going to work trying to influence this race in the 6th district. Secondly, the district itself isn't inclined to listen to Hollywood. It's one of the most conservative districts in the country in terms of who they listen to. They don't listen to the Hollywood types, and that is a good thing. So they can talk all they want to, just like they did during the presidential race. By the way, have you seen that bus yet with all of the Hollywood types who were going to leave if Trump got elected? I think I missed it.
Yeah, well, they said that they would leave. You're right in that. We haven't seen anybody move.
Leave.
Let me ask you about tax reform on this tax day. Obviously, Herman, I've been reporting this now for a couple of weeks that the Congress and the White House has basically moved beyond the August deadline. They have blown off that deadline for getting a tax overhaul through. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin reaffirmed that in an interview with the Financial Times, saying that it is, quote, highly aggressive to not realistic at this point. He went on to say legislation was likely delayed due to health care. What's your take on this? I mean, take a look at Steven Mnuchin just back in February compared to what President Donald Trump told me last week on this very issue. Listen to this, Herman.
I think, quite frankly, for us to have tax reform done by August is a very aggressive position, and we're going to get it done. But we weren't ready to launch tax reform right away, and we were ready to take on the Obamacare issue, so I don't see why you think people were disappointed in the order of that.
Have you moved off of this soft deadline that your team put in place of August to get this done? Are you looking at the later in the year?
I don't want to put deadlines. Healthcare is going to happen at some point. Now, if it doesn't happen fast enough, I'll start the taxes. But the tax reform and the tax cuts are better if I can do health care first.
Not good, Herman, not good. You pushed your own plan, your own tax plan during your previous presidential run. What's your take on this? The tax reform is hostage to health care, and they can't get health care done.
Respectfully, I disagree with you on both, and allow me to explain why. First of all, the August deadline for tax reform was aggressive, as the Secretary said. I think that saying that it will not be by then is a hiccup, not the flu. Secondly, it shows that they learned from the experience with health care repeal and replace, that there are some dynamics they've got to deal with in Congress, because you got to deal not only with the House, you got to deal with the Senate. I think they're being more realistic. Here's the other thing that you don't hear a lot reported on. Health care is not off the table. It's not dead. I talked to a Freedom Caucus member just a week ago today who told me that they are closer now than they ever been, and he fully expects that the House Republicans are going to put something on the table that the president will go along with. So there's a misconception that health care repeal and replace has failed. No, it has not. It's just that you don't hear a lot about it because it didn't make that artificial date of March 23rd. Tax reform, let's face it, we know that's also going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of give and take with a lot of people. So I'm just glad that it's still one of the top 2 priorities. We will get there, but we just have to pack our patience, as a colleague of mine said.
Sounds like you think we'll get both of these pieces of legislation this year.
I truly believe that.
All right.
I believe we'll get both of them before the end of the year. That is my optimistic view.
Herman, great to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Happy to be with you as always.
Herman Cain joining us there. We have